Hello everybody, Zenith20 back again. In this video, we'll be creating a tic-tac-toe game using nothing but HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's get straight into it. I have a basic structure with index.css, index.html, and index.js with me. So we'll start in the index.html and we'll write the structure required to make the tic-tac-toe game. First of all, we're going to have a div and we're going to give it the class of container. Then we'll have a table. And in that table, we'll have a table row along with the table data. Our table data is going to have a class of a letter, or we can instead have a ID of a letter. That would be much more fitting. And now in this one table row, we're going to add 3 table data elements. So this was the first, second, and third. Next, we'll give them the IDs of A, B, and C. Now this is one row in the table. We're going to copy it twice. And now we'll have the 3 rows and the 3 elements in each rows to create a 3x3 grid for our tic-tac-toe game. Now we'll give the IDs to the rest of the elements. And that's it. That's our table basically done. And now we'll move out of the table and we're going to give 2 labels or 2 texts so that we can see and whose player turn it is and whether if the game has been won by a player or not. So we're first of all going to have player turn. And let's keep it O for default. I'm going to give it a class of player turn. And we'll have another one for player won so that we can know which player has won the game. We'll give it again a default of O has won the game. Which we'll later on edit through the JavaScript. And that's it. Now in the header, we're going to link our CSS files. And we're also going to add our script using the script tag. And make sure in the script tag that we add the defer keyword because we want this script to run after our page has basically loaded. So we want this script to run when our page has loaded, and then it can apply the event listeners on these elements. Moving on into the index.css, let's add some basic styling to our tables and the whole web page. And that's the basic styling done. So let's see if our X and O's appear on the board. So right now we can see they're out of alignment. We'll just give this a text align of center, and that's it. We can maybe increase the font size to 50 pixels, and that seems to work. Okay. Now moving on in the index.js, first of all, we want to access each and every of these slots. In fact, let's also add a cursor hover effect on this. So when we're on any of these table datas, we're going to add a cursor of pointer. So yep, this gives a nice effect to it. Now back in the index.js, we want to access each and every of these boards, and we also want to access these two elements over here. So we're going to first of all access the buttons. We're going to create a variable, and we're going to select them using document.querySelector. Query selector all, because we want a list of the elements. And we're going to select the table data, as each of these are table data. Next, we are going to select the player turn element. Query selector, and we want to get the class of this element. So if you go here, it was player turn. Copy that, let a dot player turn because it's a class. Next, we want the player one element, and this was player one. Okay. So now that we have access to all of these elements, we want to hide this because currently the game has just started and nobody has won the game. So what we can do about this is we can add an additional class over here of hide, and let's access it here of dot player one, and we want to access if it's hidden, we want to give it a display none, and then we'll give the default styling of dot player one, and we'll give it a display of block. So we'll remove the dot hide class when the game has been won. Okay, so now we're going to loop over each of these buttons, and we're going to add an event listener to it. We'll use the for each loop, and for each button, we want to add an event listener. We want to add the event listener of click. So when we click on the button, it will fire a function. And in this case, we'll create our function over here. Function button click. It will have the parameter of event, and we'll pass this function over here. Okay. Now, before I go into the button click function, let's define some more elements over here. These will be variables for the essential functionality of the game. So let's have the variable game over equals to false, so that we can stop listening for the button click once the game is over. And we're going to have an array of combo. These will be combos array. And basically, it's going to have all of the possible combinations of the tic-tac-toe in strings. So if we add the letters and we check for all the possible combos, we can first of all start with the horizontal ones. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, which are over here. So the first three combos for a possible winning state in the game is A, B, C, and then D, E, F, and then G, H, I. These are three strings for the horizontal combinations. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, H, I. These are the horizontal combinations, and now we want the vertical combination, which is the first letter or the same column elements, which is A, and then the next one in the same column is D, and then G. So the first vertical one is ADG, and then the next one is BEH, and then the third one is CFI. CFI, yes, it's CFI. And now we want the diagonals. For the diagonals, we have to consider it in a diagonal manner. So we'll start from the top left corner and we'll go downwards. So that will be A, E, I. A, E, I. And now the second diagonal, which will be from the top right corner to the other side, that will be C, E, G. All right, I think so. That's all the combinations. The 9 combinations. Yes. Okay. Now we want to define a player turn variable so that we can track whose turn it is. For the default one, we're going to have O. So suppose O is going to start the game. Now in the button click function, we are going to check for two conditions first of all. We're going to check if the button is empty. This is a variable which will hold a Boolean value. And in this, we're going to use a ternary operator to write a if condition. So we want to check if event dot target dot text content so that we can see what's inside this element. If event dot target or text content is equals to empty, then we return true. Otherwise, we're going to return false. So basically, it's a ternary operator in which we're using the question mark and the colon. So it's a shorter way of writing the if condition. We're checking if our event.target, if our target element's inner text is empty, then we're going to return true, meaning it's empty, and otherwise it's not empty, so we're going to return false. Next, we want to check if the game is over. So now we're going to add a if condition. If game over, then we want to simply return. So we don't want to check any further if the game is over. So let's bring it to the top. Okay, below if is empty, we're going to add a if condition to check if the grid is empty. And if it is empty, we're going to check the player turn. If player turn is equals to X, then on the target element, we're going to change the text content to X. So currently it's doing nothing because we've not set it for the O. We can check it in this way. We just need to copy this and we replace this with O so that we can check if player turn is equals to O. So now we can see it's working, but not in the way we want it to work. So we're going to define two more variables over here. And what basically this will do is that it will track the combination of the letters which the player has scored. So we want to have two combos, player one combo, which will be an empty string, and player two combo, which will also be an empty string. So basically, whenever a player will click on the slot, empty slot, the slot's ID will be added to the combo. And then later on, we're going to search in the combo if any of these possible combinations exist. So we'll be comparing these two strings, and if there is a possible match between them, so if suppose this combination is found in player one's combo, that means player one has won. So back in the button click function, we're going to attach the ID of this element. So let's get the ID over here on top. We're going to write it as slot ID, and we're going to get it as event.target.id. It's going to be let because we're declaring it. Okay, so player X is the player 2. So we're going to attach to that string the combo. We'll give it slot ID. Same thing we're going to do with the O player, except it's going to be player 1. Okay. In the end, what we want to do is that we want to reverse the player turn. So player turn is equals to, now again, we're using the same ternary operator pattern below over here. So we want to check if player turn is equals to X. So if it X, we want to return O. Otherwise, we'll return X. So we switch the player turn whenever we click on the button. And now we can see it's working. We cannot click on a slot which is already occupied. And the player turns are also switching. Okay. This should be over here in the loop. Okay, so all of this should be inside the if is empty. Otherwise, if it's not, then we'll return. So this seems fine. Okay. In fact, let's just do it like this. If is empty, we're going to remove this and we're going to add if it is empty. If the slot is empty, we're going to return. That's a much more cleaner way of writing it. So basically we're writing a guard clause. If it is not empty, we're going to return. Going to use the exclamation mark to invert it. If it's not empty, we want to return and not check anymore further. Okay. It is working. Nice. Okay. Next, we want to have the check winner function, which we are going to define here below. Now in the check winner, we want to check for the combinations. And for checking that, we're going to define another function over here. Check combination match. In this, we want to get the target string, which we're going to check against. And over here, the function is going to be really simple. What we're going to do is that we're going to have a variable, a Boolean variable, match found, which will tell us if there is any match found in it. And we're going to return this match found. It's going to be false. Now we're going to do a loop over all of the combos. Combos dot for each. Yes, combos dot for each combo. We want to check now again. So we're going to use a for loop. For let I is equals to 0. I is lesser than combo dot length. We want to increment it then. Okay, so basically in this loop, we're going to iterate over each of the combo strings, and then we're going to iterate over each of the letters of the combo string to check if each and every letter is existing in our target string. So by default, we're going to have another variable over here, temp match is equals to false. So we're basically keeping, no, in fact, it will be true. We're basically keeping track that by default, our combo is present in the string. But then we're going to check after this if not. So we're using the exclamation mark, and then we'll check if not target string includes, in fact, target string dot includes our combo, and we're going to access that specific element inside it. If it does not contain it, then we're going to have temp match is equals to false, and we want to break out of the loop. Now, basically what we're checking is that suppose we have our combination as something like AEG, and we're going to check in from the combos array for suppose ABC. So what we're going to do is that first of all, we're going to loop over the ABC combo string. So suppose our combo string is over here, ABC. We're going to first of all check if from the combo, the letter A exists in the player's combo. And then we're going to check if B exists, and then we're going to check if C exists in it. If either one of them does not exist, so suppose if B does not exist in the string, we're going to break out of it, because if even single one does not exist, we're going to exit the loop, because that combination has already not having a possible chance in the string. Okay, so that's basically the explanation. And let's continue this function of check combination match. So in the for loop, we have the temp match. If it is false, we break. Okay, now just before we close this loop off, we're going to have this temp match first of all brought out to the outer loop. This will be in the outer loop, and now this will be all in the inner loop. The if condition will be inside the inner loop. Okay, so outside this, we're going to have now an if condition to check that if we had a temporary match, like if we found a match, we're going to set our match found to true, and we're going to return from this for each, because for each itself is a function, and we're going to return from this basically. And match found, we'll set match found to that. And okay, now let's check for this function in the check winner. So let's create another function before that, which will be function, and we'll add check draw. So we want to check if the game is draw, because that's also a possible state. So for check draw, we're going to have variable result that's going to be false, or in fact, let's make it true. Now we're going to check over all of the buttons dot for each of the buttons dot for each button. We want to check if button dot text content is equals to empty. So in if condition, button dot text content, if it's equal to empty, we are going to make result to false, and we're going to state up a return. And we're going to return the result in the end. So basically, by default, we assume that all of them are occupied. And if we find a single button which has empty text inside it, that means it's still not draw, and we return the result, which will be false. Okay. Now, if in this, we're going to check if check combination match. We're going to first of all check for player one's combo. If it is, so we're going to add a player one. We're going to first of all access its class list by using the class list member, and we're going to remove from it the hide class which we added, which actually hides it. And then we're going to add to the player one element dot text content. We're going to add O player one, and we're going to set game over to true. And now we're going to just copy this 3 times. For the second one, we just need to change it to player 2 combo, and then we'll add X player 1 if it is true. And for the third one, check draw, we're going to call the check draw function, and for that we'll remove the class. But for this one, we'll add the text to it's a tie, and we'll set the game over to true. Now let's check, and we can see that it is checking it exactly as we hope to. Let's do another one in which we'll have a diagonal. Now let's say X player 1. Now let's try to create a tie of some sort. It's X player 1 again. Let's create a tie. X player 1 again. Okay. X player 1. O player 1. But in this case, O player 1. So this is another bug which we need to see. Okay. So basically, we should add this in a else if. Instead of adding 3 ifs, we're going to add else if. And then for this one as well, we'll add else if. So if it has checked this if condition, it's not going to check the rest of these. So now let's check. Nice, it's a draw. O player 1 again. O player 1 again. O player 1 again. Nice. Now what we can see over here is that it's showing player turn O. So we're forgetting to switch the player turn O. So a simple fix to that is we go back to the button click, player turn element in the button click. After we change the player turn, we're going to change the player turn element dot text content to player turn. Simple as that. we're just going to append this as well. So it is going to be player turn colon, and then we add this. Nice. There's a spacing. Okay. X O X O X. Okay, O player one. And now we cannot also click on this because the game is over and we cannot click on it anymore. Okay, final touches which we can add to this is that we can highlight which of these circles are for the winner. So for that, we can create a really easy function, and that is function highlight tiles. And then in this, we're going to give a string. And I'll tell you why we're using a string. So we're going to declare a variable, let letters equals to string dot split. So what this will do basically is that suppose if we have a string of ABC, what this will do is that it's going to create an array of it, and it will convert the string to A, B, and C. And if you remember, we had given each of our slots the IDs. So we can access this by checking which combo was for the player. So in this, we're going to loop over each of the buttons, or in fact, let's loop over each of the letters. Letters dot for each of the letter, we want to access that particular element. So, and we're going to access the element in this way. Let element equals to document dot query selector. It's ID, so it's going to start with the hashtag. And we'll have to use the backticks because we're going to write string literal. We're going to put the $sign and brackets, and then we can give our variable inside. So basically, this will substitute the value over here along with the ID. This will give us the element, and simply we can do element dot class list dot add highlight. Now this will add the class list to it. So that means we have to also define it. So we'll go back to the CSS classes. We'll go back to the index.css, and that we're going to define the dot highlight. For that, we can give a simple style like background color to green. Okay. Now, before we can use this function, we need to go back to the check combination match, and we need to return two things instead of one. Currently, we're returning match found, but we now also want the match which we found. So we know that we have found a match, but which exactly combo is it? Like, is this the combo, or is this the combo? We want the letters for these, and that can be done over here easily. Match combo is going to be an empty string because we don't know for the default one. And we're going to return an array this time. We're going to give the match combo as well in it. So now our function returns two elements, which is match found and match combo. Okay, so back in the if temporary match is equals to true, we're going to also set our match combo to the current combo, which we are looping over, which we had written over here. Okay, now back over here, we need to edit our if statements. If we go over here, this function now returns an array. So we're going to access that array, and we're going to access the first element of it, which is the match found. That's the Boolean, and the second one is the string. But we're concerned with only the first one because we're checking the condition. Now for the second one will be highlight tiles. And in this one, we're going to take our function and paste it here, but we're going to access the second element of this function because it's returning an array, and it's the match combo. We take this and we copy it down below, but we'll make sure that it's player 2 combo, and that's it. If we now see it, we're getting the highlight. Perfect. 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 Let's try another case. It's a tie. Nice. Nice. So there you go, everybody. That's our tic-tac-toe game made with JavaScript. Hope you had enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.